Okay, so today we're going to be talking about prose, drama, and poetry structure. This is structural elements or structures of literature on Learning Farm. So the first structure we're going to talk about is what is prose. Prose is ordinary language. It's what we're used to reading. It's written in sentences and paragraphs that might include dialogue. Dialogue means when characters are talking. So in stories, you will often see dialogue used. Most of the literature we read is written in prose. So the structural elements of prose. Prose is organized into sentences. Sentences express a complete thought. Prose is also organized into paragraphs, which is a group of sentences that are joined together about a common idea, and dialogue. Dialogue is words or sentences that a character has said. Chapter is also a major division of a novel, so it's also how prose is organized. Sentences. A sentence is a group of words that expresses a complete thought. So an example of a complete sentence: as Mary was coming home, she heard a strange little patter, patter, patter behind her. A sentence always begins with a capital letter and ends with a period, question mark, or exclamation point. Paragraphs. Paragraphs are sentences that's grouped together about a common main idea. So this paragraph is still about Mary. It says, as Mary was coming home, she heard a strange little patter, patter, patter behind her. She looked back and saw something white. Mary felt a wee bit afraid and began to run, but her foot struck a rock, and down she tumbled. Before she could get up, something soft and woolly was rubbing against her. Also, a paragraph is indented. Dialogue. So we said prose often includes dialogue. Dialogue tells the speaker or the character's exact words that were spoken. "Oh, you darling lamb," cried Mary, hugging it. Dialogue's offset with quotation marks. You will see it around "oh, you darling lamb." Those are the exact words that Mary said. The next structure we're going to talk about is a drama. Dramas are also called plays. They are literature that's meant to be acted out and performed. When you see a drama in its written form, you're going to usually see a cast of characters, dialogue, and stage directions. And we're going to go into each of these topics in just a moment. Dramas are organized by scenes and acts. So let's go back to prose. We said prose was organized into sentences, paragraphs, chapters. We also said that authors of prose sometimes use dialogue. Dramas, instead of being organized into sentences and paragraphs, dramas are organized into scenes and acts. We're going to go into the structural elements. We just mentioned cast of characters is a list of characters in a play. Most of the time when you see a drama, it's meant to be performed, so they're going to list the characters so you'll know how many actors or actresses you will need. Dialogue. Drama is also meant to be performed, so it's a lot of speaking. We'll have a lot of spoken lines by the characters. Stage directions. Stage directions are not meant to be stated out loud. Stage directions are how the actors or actresses are supposed to act, and it tells them what they should do. Setting. Oftentimes in a drama, at the beginning of an act or scene, if there is a setting change, it will state that. That way the reader can visualize that, and also the actors and actresses or anyone that's working on the crew for the drama can prepare the area for the play to be performed. Scenes. Scenes are sections of the play with similar settings. And then acts are major, longer sections of a play. So we've been to the plays at the community center. We've had several different scene changes, but oftentimes there's just a few acts. So I tell my kids usually scenes are kind of like the paragraphs for a drama. They're a shorter organizational block. Okay, they still have that similar setting. Whenever there's a major section change, that's called an act. It's kind of comparable to a chapter for a story. So cast of characters, we already said it's a list of characters in a play. So for Mary Had a Little Lamb, here's just an example. It simply lists the different characters: Mary, lamb, mother, father, teacher. Dialogue. Dialogue, exact words the actors are going to say. So here the teacher said, Mary, what is 7 times 3? And then Mary said, what? The character's name is placed at the beginning, followed by a colon. That's the 2 dots. The words that follow the colon are spoken by the actor. So in dialogue, it's different than a story because they do not use quotation marks to offset the dialogue. Stage directions. Stage directions tell the actors what they should do. It also allows the reader to infer character traits based on how they're talking. So here you see the teacher, and inside the brackets it says sternly. Sternly is a stage direction. It's telling the teacher how they should talk. So the teacher is sternly going to say, Mary, what is 7 times 3? Then Mary, her stage direction, it says jumping up. Now, Mary isn't going to say jumping up. She's just going to do that action because it's telling her how she should act. And Mary replies, what? So stage directions allow me to infer character traits. So when Mary jumps up, I can infer, without the author telling me, that she was startled. Oftentimes, stage directions can be offset by parentheses or brackets. Here they use brackets, and they're often written in italics. So italics is the slanted type. Setting. The author can include the setting. On this, about Mary Had a Little Lamb, the setting was, on a warm sunny day, Mary gazes dreamily out of the window of the old schoolhouse. So there you see where. It's at the old schoolhouse. And you see when. It was a warm, sunny day. So both elements of setting, where and when, were mentioned. Scenes and acts. So this is just going a little bit deeper into scenes and acts. So if this was a drama, you can see there were 2 major acts. On Act 1, there are 4 scenes. And then on Act 2, there are 3 scenes. Dramas are organized into acts and scenes. Okay, now we're going to move on to poetry. Poetry is written to inspire and invoke emotion. Poetry allows the author to share ideas or insights in a meaningful way. Poetry is different because, unlike prose that's written in sentences and paragraphs and it's very, very structured, poetry doesn't have rules. There are some different styles of poems that you can use, but there are also types of poetry that is free verse and the author can do whatever they want to. Structural elements of poetry. So a verse is 1 line of poetry. We don't have sentences and paragraphs in poetry. In poetry, we have a verse, which is lines of poetry. Stanzas, which is a group of lines or a group of verses in a poem, often about a common topic or focus. Rhythm, it can have rhythm, which means beats or accented syllables. It can have meter, which is a pattern of beats or accented syllables, and rhyme, syllables or sounds that sound similar. Okay, verses and stanzas. So we said each line of poetry is called a verse. Verses are grouped into what we call stanzas. Mary had a little lamb. That it was one verse. Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was as white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. How many verses are in that first stanza? So if we look, Mary had a little lamb, that's one verse. Its fleece was white as snow, that's 2. And everywhere that Mary went, that's 3. The lamb was sure to go. That's 4 verses, 4 lines in that first stanza. Okay, so if we look at this poem all together, you can see there are 4 stanzas. In each stanza, there are 4 lines. Rhythm. Okay, rhythm is talking about the beat. So we're going to look at the beat in these lines of poetry. Sometimes it helps to clap each stressed syllable as the poem is read. Rhythm, for me, whenever I'm answering questions about rhythm, I have to say the poem out loud and really stress the syllables. Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. So the syllables that were highlighted were the accented syllables. You can see every other syllable is accented, so this is showing you the poem's rhythm. Meter. Meter is describing the arrangement of rhythm. So here is highlighted is the meter for Mary Had a Little Lamb. So how would you describe the meter of this poem? The first line has 4 stressed beats. The second line has 3 stressed beats. The third line has 4, and the fourth line has 3. You would call that meter 4-3-4-3. And really, like I said before, to help out with seeing what are the stressed syllables, it helps if you read it out loud. You could even clap with the accented ones if you need to. You could highlight it with your highlighter to help you. But that's just what helps me, is reading it out loud. Okay, rhyme. So rhyme is when your last syllables of a verse sounds like the last syllable of another verse. So Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow. And everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. So we're going to talk about something called rhyme scheme. Rhyme scheme is talking about the pattern of rhyme. So if we look at line 1 or verse 1, Mary had a little lamb. Lamb, we're going to call that rhyme scheme A. So we're just going to write A over to the side, to the right. And then on the next line, next verse, it ends with snow. Well, snow does not rhyme with lamb, so I'm going to call that rhyme scheme B. If I look at verse 3 or line 3, it says went. Well, went does not rhyme with snow. It does not rhyme with lamb, so I'm going to have to call that rhyme scheme C. I'm going to call that C. But when I look at verse 4, line 4, go rhymes with snow. So I'm going to call that pattern B. So looking at this stanza, I can call this rhyme scheme, this rhyme pattern, A, B, C, B. Okay, so let's review. Prose is ordinary language. It's what we're used to reading most of the time in our articles and our stories. It's organized sentences, paragraphs, chapters. Dramas are plays meant to be performed. Dramas have cast of characters and stage directions. It's organized into scenes and acts. Poetry is written to inspire emotion. It's expressive writing. It's written in verses, that means lines, and stanzas, groups of lines. Poems often have rhythm, rhyme,